I recently came across the book Invisible Woman: Data Bias in a World Designed for Men. Data bias in a world designed for men. What does that mean? In what way is the world designed for men? Is there any proof? Are there any examples? Those are the questions I asked myself when I saw this book, and I picked it up to find out the answers. At that moment, I was researching gender inequality and gender biases, so this book was perfect when I came across it. And this book really introduced me to new terminology, such as the gender data gap, and new ideas which I had never previously considered, and has opened up my mind to so many different realms of possibilities and understanding. And I hope that this video will help you also understand these new concepts and terminology and expose you to a greater understanding of what really is the gender data bias and what can be done to help solve it. So let's get straight into it. Caroline Perez's most striking revelation from this book is how deeply ingrained the male as default mindset is in our culture. From data collection to product design, our world is almost built around the idea that the male experience is the norm, is the standard, while the female experience is often ignored or marginalized. And this is a subconscious bias that exists in society, meaning that it exists, but people might not be aware of it. People might not know that they are enacting it. And this has far reaching consequences. It can impact women's personal, professional, and everyday lives. So, certain examples of the consequences of the gender data gap can be in everyday life because these issues really are pervasive and the consequences are profound. And women are disadvantaged in simple things such as smartphones or pianos because when these things have been designed, they've been designed considering male anthropometrics, male ergonomics, such as the length of a male finger, the distance between a male pinky and a thumb for the keyboard, or the size of the thumb when clicking on an icon on a phone. And what I found most interesting, or perhaps concerning, is how women's health and safety are compromised when safety procedures and medical research are designed around male bodies. The one that stood out to me most was regarding a heart attack. And it's quite shocking, really, the statistic that women in the UK are 50% more likely to be misdiagnosed for a heart attack and are far more likely to die than men. Why? Because the symptoms from women are very different from the general Hollywood male heart attack. The Hollywood male heart attack, as shown on the right, is associated with a shortness of breath, a pain in the chest, whereas these are very, very different for women. As in, it's true that they might also have shortness of breath, but rather than pain in the chest, they might have pain in the arm, shoulder, armpit. And it's quite interesting to see how these NHS guidelines really disenfranchise women and don't represent their symptoms, and how dangerous this can be for society in general. And the impact of this gender data bias extends to economic and political realms as well, because the world's largest gender gap in general is found in a country's GDP, and the global economy does inevitably suffer as a result. So, as I've written here, political systems disenfranchise women, and the gender pay gap persists, leading to imbalances in representation and policy decisions that don't adequately address women's concerns. Now, I am writing a research paper, and I'm just finishing it off right now, which is about gender inequality at leadership positions, where I've interviewed and surveyed women in leadership positions in C-suite roles in America and Europe, as well as a member of the G7 Gender Equality Council. And one of the things I did consider during my evaluation and during my discussions was, is this a self-perpetuating cycle? As shown in the image, if the majority of individuals in, let's say, leadership positions are males, then how will this change pass on through generations? How will this idea pass on that this gender data gap needs to be broken? And I think this is called the broken rung in McKinsey's report, though I will delve further into this in a future video, which I do look forward to because it's extremely interesting and I would love to share my findings with you. But then I began to consider, do government interventions need to take place? Do unnatural means need to be carried out? So that's just an interesting thing to concern, but I will come to that in a future video. For now, we'll focus still on the gender data gap. So as I mentioned before, there is a self-reinforcing cycle. And for this, I'll use the example of Wikipedia again. I have used the example of Wikipedia in the past in a motivation video before, like a video about the psychology of motivation. So just for context, Wikipedia is one of the world's most popular websites and is often considered to be a gender-neutral encyclopedia. However, when Caroline Perez, the author, I and other researchers did deeper analysis, it's quite clear to see that there is a gender data gap problem, as most of its editors are white American men. And this lack of diverse perspectives can continuously and inevitably perpetuate gender biases in information dissemination. So, Invisible Woman's book message is very clear. Women's experiences and needs are often overlooked, and it's extremely significant to confront this issue head on. As Caroline Perez points out in one of her quotes, I think, women simply don't exist as easily as men seem to. So there must be a call to action and a collective responsibility. It's vital to urge society to challenge the status quo of these gender expectations, these gender data gaps and biases. And it is a collective responsibility to address this gender data gap, and as well as the need for better data, inclusive design, and equal representation. The first step to doing that is to simply learn about it, which is what I hope I helped you do today, and which is what this book really helped me to do. So I think it's vital for you to share these findings with other people, tell people about this gender data gap to help you revise the concept as well as inform others about it. And I will be doing future videos on similar topics in gender inequality in leadership positions based on my research, and I really look forward to that. So make sure, and I will also be doing videos on more books which I found really interesting and key findings. So make sure to like and subscribe so you are notified when those videos do come out. But I hope you found this interesting, and thank you.